Good evening. Wow, what a great turnout. Welcome to Crew Debrief. This is for Expeditions 54 and 55. My name is William Harris. I'm President and CEO here at Space Center Houston, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to the program this evening. Space Center Houston is all about inspiring the wonders of space exploration. And so we are really about interpreting for the public all the wonders of science and space exploration, and specifically what's happening with the U.S. space program and space around the world. I really want to extend a warm welcome this evening to our members who are in the audience this evening. Thank you for your support. We encourage you to join our program. It's all about great experiences. We have a number of wonderful programs coming up. If you're not aware, if you look on our website, spacecenterhouston.org, on August 24th, we're going to have a panel featuring women leaders of NASA with Debbie Condor, who's Director of JSC External Relations, Kathy Kerner, Director of Human Health and Performance, and Vanessa Weiss, Director of Exploration, Integration, and Science. Should be a terrific program. Here at Space Center Houston, we're all about making space exploration available to everyone. I'm proud to announce that just last month, we are the first science center in the world certified as an autism service center. So all of our staff has gone through training and programming. And we actually have, thank you so much. It's really an excellent achievement for our team. So we offer sensory-sensitive kits for families in the mornings, and also special morning and evening programs. So if you check out our website to learn more about that type of programming. I'm absolutely delighted this evening to welcome one of our board members and the Director of Operations at Johnson Space Center, Joel Walker, who's going to preside this evening as our Master of Ceremonies. So please join me in welcoming Joel Walker.
Thank you, William. Are y'all pumped to be here tonight? All right, it's going to be a fun night. As William said, I'm the Director of Center Operations, Joel Walker, and I want to thank you for coming tonight as we celebrate all the things that are around this International Space Station and all the people that make it happen. I want to start by thanking William, Tracy Lamb, Andrew Vargas, and all the folks at Space Center Houston put all this together for us. Give them a big round of applause for hosting us. And we also have a lot of folks on site that do a lot of the imagery and take what the astronauts shoot and everything and turn it into beautiful pictures and beautiful videos, and they do a great job, so we thank them. Right now, it's my great pleasure to introduce my boss, the kind of the best person at NASA. Super smart, super great, fun to work with. Please welcome the Director of Johnson Space Center, Mr. Mark Geyer.
Wow. Anyway, hey, it is awesome. It's terrific that you were able to come today and join us as we recognize the crew and also the folks that helped this mission happen. Last week, we announced the crews for the first commercial crew flights to space station. So those are crews that are coming up. But one of the interesting things about the event was one of the folks there, Bob Cabana, was actually, along with Sergei Krikalev, were the first two people to actually enter space station. They floated through the hatch between the node and the FGB. And it was almost 20 years ago. Or actually, just a couple months from now, it'll be 20 years. So you don't have a record like that, 20 years of incredible operations and achievements without, first of all, incredible crews, trained and high caliber folks, but also the team on the ground that does awesome work. So it's great you could be here. We'll recognize this particular group. Couple things I'd like to say. So during the time aboard the space station for this particular expedition, the crew studied bacteria, manufactured fiber optics and microgravity, measured the total amount of sunlight received on Earth, and gathered data on space debris in low Earth orbit, and studied self-replicating materials. Also, this was the first increment we had 4 USOS crew members, so that was a big change, and we, of course, based on that, we actually set records on utilization on space station, going over 100 hours, 109 hours actually. And this crew also, it was the year of education. So Joe Acaba, of course, is an educator astronaut. Now Ricky's up there now, by the way. And one example of what's happening is they had a bunch of downlinks, again, with schools and educators. And just to give you a sense for how many people were reached, there are over 24,000 students participated in downlinks for this expedition alone. So incredible work. Let's see, the crew, of course, is going to go through a video and talk you through a little bit more details about what they did on board space station. But first, let me give you a little background on each of the crew members. So if the crew members would please stand when I mention your names. So hopefully I'll say your names really clearly, starting off with Joe Acaba, flight engineer of expeditions 53 and 54. Born in Inglewood, California, he received his BS in geology from University of California, Santa Barbara, and a Master's of Science in Geology from the University of Arizona in 1992, and Master's of Education from Texas Tech. Selected as an astronaut in 2004. He's had 2 previous flights in 2009 aboard STS-119, and in 2012 he worked as a flight engineer for expeditions 31 and 32. He was recently served as the DOR in Star City, has 306 days in space, and completed 3 spacewalks with a total spacewalk time of 19 hours and 46 minutes. Joe, thank you. Norishige Kanai from JAXA. He's a flight engineer for expeditions 54 and 55. His hometown is Tokyo. Graduated from the National Defense Medical College in 2002. Worked as a surgeon and diving officer at the National Defense Medical College, Japan Self-Defense Force, Ohiminato Hospital, and also Hospital Curie, and the first service school of the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. He joined JAXA in 2009. This was his first flight. He has 168 days in space, completed 1 spacewalk with a total time of 5 hours and 57 minutes. Kanai-san. Alexander Misurkin. Flight engineer of Expedition 53 and commander of Expedition 54. Born in Yershiki, Russia, Misurkin entered the Kachin High Air Force Pilot School, where he studied for 4 years. He continued pilot training at the Armavir Military Aviation Institute and graduated in 1999 with a gold medal as a pilot engineer. He was qualified as a cosmonaut in 2009. He has 1 previous flight during Expeditions 35 and 36. He has a total of 334 days in space. He's accumulated 28 hours, 14 minutes of spacewalk time from 4 spacewalks, and was awarded the Hero of the Russian Federation in 2016. Anton Shkaplerov. Anton was a flight engineer of Expedition 54 and commander of Expedition 55. He was born in Sevastopol on the Crimean Peninsula. He attended Chernihiv High Military Aviation School before transferring to Kachin High Air Force Pilot School in 1992. He graduated in 1994 with honors. He studied in Zhukovsky Military Air Engineering Academy and graduated as a research pilot. Selected as a cosmonaut in 2003 and as a test cosmonaut in 2005. He has 2 previous flights, Expedition 29 and 30 in 2012 and Expedition 42 in 2014. He has a total of 533 days in space. He's accumulated 14 hours and 48 minutes of spacewalk time from 2 spacewalks, and together with his crewmate conducted a spacewalk of 8 hours and 13 minutes, which is a record for the longest Russian spacewalk to date. And he was he was also awarded the Hero of Russian Federation in 2013. Scott Tingle. Flight engineer of Expeditions 54 and 55. His hometown is Randolph, Massachusetts. He earned a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from Southeastern Massachusetts University and a master's of science in mechanical engineering from Purdue University in 1988. Attended Naval Aviation Safety Officer School in January 2000. He's a veteran of numerous deployments as a captain in the Navy. He was commissioned as a naval officer in 91 and earned his wings in 1993. As a Navy test pilot, he accumulated more than 4,500 flight hours in 51 types of aircraft, 750 carrier arrestments, and 54 combat missions. He was selected as an astronaut in 2009. This was his first flight. Scott has a total of 168 days in space, and he has a total of 7 hours and 45 minutes of spacewalk time. Mark Vande. Mark was a flight engineer of Expedition 53 and 54, born in Falls Church, Virginia, received his bachelor's in physics from St. John's University and master's of science in applied physics from Stanford in 1999. As a U.S. Army colonel, he was deployed to Iraq for 12 months in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. He was selected as an astronaut in 2009. He completed his training in 2011. From in 2012 to May of 2013, he served as the DOR in Russia. This was Mark's first flight. He has a total of 168 days in space, and has completed a total of 4 spacewalks with a spacewalk total time of 20 hours and 45 minutes. Mark. So again, thanks for joining us for these to honor their achievements and also give awards to those that supported the mission. At this time, we'll have a short awards presentation and thank those who did the amazing works, both on orbit and here on Earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Before we begin the crew's presentation, we're going to do this little ceremony and give some awards to some of the folks that made this possible. So I'd like for those of you who are receiving an award or receiving an award for a team to kind of make your way down over towards May Manjeri on that side of the stage. If you could just kind of get up now and start making your way down that way. When you come out on stage, please be careful. There is a drop-off in the back, and we don't want anybody to fall off the ledge. I'd like to ask the Expedition 54 Commander Alexander Misurkin, Expedition 54 Flight Engineer Mark Vande, and Expedition 54 Lead Flight Director Mary Lawrence to join Mr. Geyer on stage for the award ceremony. Now, I'm going to tell you how this works. We're NASA and we like to do simulations, but I'll tell you what you'll have to simulate. I'm going to read their name, the company they're from, and then the citation, and you're going to be really quiet. When I finish that, you're going to cheer like crazy, like they just scored a touchdown for the Texans in the Super Bowl, okay? To be honest, not many of these people are ever going to play NFL football. This is their Super Bowl, and I would ask them, please don't spike your award after you get it. So are you ready? We're going to practice one time and do a simulation. I'm giving this award to Clem Kadiddlehofer for fixing the thing that made the thing work, and it really worked really well and saved the planet. All right, this is an above-average crowd. For the award recipients, when you come down, Nora will be taking your picture. She'll tell you kind of where to go. She's here in front. You can use these pictures for your Christmas cards or to put them in the foyer to impress your friends when they come over. All right, and any team members that are in the audience, somebody's accepting an award for a team. Any of the team members in the audience, please stand up as I'm reading the citation. We want to recognize you too. All right, let's get started. John Love of NASA is accepting for the 100-plus hour utilization week planning team for successfully leading, coordinating, and scheduling a record-setting 100-plus hours of science utilization during a single week and for general excellence in enabling science achievements on board the space station. Lisa Martignetti of SGT is accepting for the Mission Control Center Storage Area Network Failure Response Team for exemplary performance in responding to a Mission Control Center ground systems failure by enabling redundancy through the Backup Control Center in order to ensure safe execution of ongoing dynamic ISS operations. Daniel Deshawn of the Canadian Space Agency is accepting for the Robotics Latching End Effector Software Patch Development Team for outstanding troubleshooting and resolution of the latching end effector electronic unit startup failure by recovering communication with the electronic unit through a software patch, allowing spacewalks to continue to replace robotic latching end effectors, permitting long-term robotic capability on the space station. Ian Mills of NASA and Sarah Corona of SGT, accepting for the SSRMS Latching End Effector Recovery EVA team for outstanding planning and execution of 2 spacewalks to replace robotic latching end effectors, which help ensure long-term robotic capability on space station for visiting vehicle capture, maintenance, payloads, and contingency response. Danielle Raybold of SGT and Anthony Chi of the Boeing Company are accepting for the X2 R16 Software Uplink team for the exemplary performance in the development, testing, and execution of the real-time uplink of Revision 16 software package to the onboard ISS computer system. And now for the Expedition 54 Individual Superior Achievement Awards. James Dixon of the Boeing Company for excellent support of duties as the Increment 54 Mission Evaluation Room Lead, providing consistent and timely support of increment objectives despite several engineering challenges. Jennifer Lee of SGT for outstanding performance of duties as the lead ops planner for Expedition 54, consistently managing many dynamic priorities and providing well-designed and executable flight plans. Robert Riediger of SGT for Increment 54 crew member support and for being very responsive to requests for information about how to use world map applications. Renee Ross of Leidos for exemplary support in the management of onboard procedures and products and for her overall outstanding attitude and willingness to go above and beyond. And now we're going to do some joint awards. So I'd like the Expedition 55 Commander Anton Shkaplerov, Expedition 55 Flight Engineer Scott Tingle, and Expedition 55 Lead Flight Director Gary Horlocker to come to the stage also and join the Expedition 54 crew and Lead Flight Director. All right, for the joint awards, Mark Chavez of NASA and Tonima Chaudhuri of SGT are accepting for the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicle Team for exceptional achievement in developing, testing, and implementing the common communication for visiting vehicles hardware and software required to enable the next generation unit supporting communication between the space station and visiting vehicles. Alicia Robinson and Jennifer James of the GHG Corporation are accepting for the Increment 5455 Scheduling and Coordination Team for successfully coordinating crew preparation for spaceflight, even with multiple crew changes and last-minute assignment of additional Increment 54 and 55 crew members. Travis Fitzgerald of SGT and Mike Savinsky of NASA are accepting for the Increment 54-55 training team for the successful coordination and execution of crew training in preparation for Expeditions 54 and 55 despite multiple crew changes and the last-minute assignment of additional expedition crew members. And now we're going to do some individual Superior Achievement Awards. Lisa Martignetti of SGT for exemplary performance in the development and management of the Mission Control Center work plan that ensures continuous ground operation support for the International Space Station. Robin Hetherington of SGT for outstanding performance of duties as lead suit engineer during Expeditions 54 and 55, ensuring spacewalks worked nearly perfect, resulting in several successful spacewalks, keeping our astronauts safe. And now the Expedition 54 lead flight director, commander, and flight engineer may be seated. Got to do a little shifting around. It's good that you all remember which one you're on, okay? So that's awesome. And now we're going to do Expedition 55 awards, beginning with Group Achievement Awards. And if you're in the audience and you're a part of one of these groups, please stand up. We want to cheer for you too. You're like the guard or the center on the team that, one person gets across the goal line, but you get cheered for too. It takes a whole team. Mike Lyle of SGT and Dan Dunkovich of NASA are accepting for the Increment 55 Onboard Crew Computer Network team for outstanding performance developing, testing, integrating, and managing the onboard crew computer network, including multiple software updates, core server upgrades, network upgrades, security upgrades, and new printer deployment. Patricia Patterson and Jamie Marshik of NASA are accepting for the Increment 55 Payload Ops team for outstanding coordination and implementation of an ambitious and ever-changing science plan for Expedition 55, including adjustments that were due to several significant payload facility failures. Great job. Sandeep Quatra of NASA and Tom Holmes of SGT are accepting for the KU upgrade team for exceptional achievement in developing, testing, and integrating both the onboard and ground network upgrades required to greatly increase the amount of information that can be transmitted to the ground from the International Space Station. Tamara Cougar of S&K Global Solutions is accepting for the MCA Anomaly Resolution Team for outstanding performance and perseverance while troubleshooting and restoring one of the 2 atmosphere analyzers after multiple unexpected failures. And now the Expedition 55 Individual Superior Achievement Awards. Melissa Bestick of SGT for outstanding performance of duties as the lead ops planner for Expedition 55, consistently managing many dynamic priorities and providing well-designed and executable flight plans. Robert Carrillo of the GHG Corporation for outstanding performance of duties as lead inventory and stowage officer for Expedition 55, directing the offload and reload of 2 cargo supply vehicles while simultaneously deconflicting many stowage requirements, which had a direct and positive impact to life aboard the International Space Station. Cindy Grant of NASA for exceptional leadership and operational management of the science constraints during the SpaceX 14 mission, especially after the hatch close and subsequent wave-off drove us to get back into the vehicle and repack the returning cold science samples with an extremely tight timeline. Don Reed of Teledyne Brown Engineering for outstanding performance as payloads communicator, providing a trusted voice over the space-to-ground communication loops while delivering clear direction in a calming tone, which had a positive impact on crew efficiency and payload success. That concludes our individual and team awards. Commander, Flight Engineer, Lead Flight Director, you may return to your seats. Mr. Geyer, not so fast. Lastly, we have the NASA Agency Honor Medals to present. The first NASA Distinguished Service Medal is presented to Joe Acaba in recognition of distinguished contributions as a flight engineer of Expedition 5354. The NASA Distinguished Service Medal is presented to Scott Tingle in recognition of distinguished contributions as a flight engineer of Expedition 5455. The NASA Distinguished Service Medal is presented to Mark Vande in recognition of distinguished contributions as flight engineer of the Expedition 5354 crew on board the ISS. The NASA Distinguished Public Service Medal is presented to Norishige Kanai in recognition of distinguished contributions as a flight engineer on Expedition 5455 crew on board the ISS. The NASA Distinguished Public Service Medal is presented to Alexander Misurkin in recognition of distinguished contributions as flight engineer of Expedition 53 crew and as commander of the Expedition 54 crew aboard the ISS. The NASA Distinguished Public Service Medal is presented to Anton Shkaplerov in recognition of distinguished contributions as a flight engineer of the Expedition 54 crew and as a commander of the Expedition 55 crew on board the International Space Station. The NASA Outstanding Leadership Medal is presented to Mary Lawrence for distinguished contributions as lead flight director of the Expedition 54 mission aboard the space station. The NASA Exceptional Service Medal is presented to Gary Horlocker for distinguished contributions as lead flight director of the Expedition 55 mission aboard the International Space Station. This concludes the awards portion of tonight's crew debrief, but I'd like a big round of applause for all these people doing their work on space station and on the ground supporting them. How about a big round of applause for them? And now I'd like to turn the microphone over to Expedition 54 Flight Engineer Joe Acaba for the presentation of the crew video.
This is a last-minute substitution.
Or Mark Vande.
We're flexible in our crew. So just because we can see the video and you'd rather look at the video than us, we're going to go ahead and remain seated so we can see what we're talking about as we describe it to you. So let us, when it starts, I'll start talking. And we need to. Yeah. All right, so this is a presentation for the Expeditions 54 and 55 crews. The first half of the Expedition 54 crew launched from Kazakhstan Baikonur on September 13th last year. You can see Joe Acaba, Sasha Misurkin, and myself getting ready to board the spacecraft. It's a nice September day. The launch happened at night, as you can see. It was much less violent from the inside than it appears to be from the outside. In fact, I was a little disappointed that the ride was so smooth because I really wanted a better story to tell about how amazingly shocking it was, but it was a very smooth ride and everything went very much as expected. However, if you can imagine being held down in a roller coaster by a nice tight harness, when we got into orbit like you see here, it kind of felt like that, except that the momentary sense of floating for us lasted for 6 hours while we went around the planet 4 times to get up to the space station. We docked to the zenith side of the space station. That meant the side further away from the Earth. Of course, to change the orbit so that we'd actually approach the space station, we had to fire the thrusters, and this is what it looks like out the window when that's happening and you're next to it. In the center of this picture, you can see that docking port that we're trying to approach. We were all very carefully watching telemetry to make sure the automatic system worked because we knew that Sasha was well prepared to take over and dock manually if needed. It wasn't needed. The docking probe got captured and retracted in to pull the two interfaces together. And then after that, the latches held it tight, and then we could retract the probe, which is good because that probe is on the end of the hatch that Sasha's opening, and we wouldn't have been able to open the hatch if it didn't work correctly. So all was well. You can imagine how happy we were when we went from that small internal space in the Soyuz into this massive internal space in the International Space Station. Someone's got to be different. Of course, the whole reason we put people in space is to do science. It's a very unique environment up there. I'm carefully working through a procedure to change some gas cylinders on a combustion facility, one of many of the different facilities we have on the space station. It's much easier to move in space than it is on the ground. But some things are harder, like lighting a fire. This flame here is spherical, which is typical of the space environment where you don't have any convection forces. Another problem with space is that it's really hard to get bubbles out of a solution. So if you want to get bubbles out of an IV bag, then you don't have any buoyant forces. You have to spin around like you see here to get those bubbles, the lighter or less dense bubbles, to go to the center of the circle, and me trying to dance on some bungee cords.
And so not only are we looking at a lot of the physical science, we're doing the biological sciences, looking at how the body adapts in space, so looking specifically at the eye. So we're trying to track that from as soon as we get on board. Of course, working with different universities. Here's the Spheres payload, working with the faculty and students from out of MIT. So the science we do is not only to benefit life on Earth, to help us explore further than ever, but also the educational part. And then next thing you know, it's 3 months have passed. Part of your crew is getting ready to go. You form this bond, but it's time to hand over command. And then we give them the hugs goodbye. And in our case, it was a very short time period, about 4 days before the Marshmallow Men appeared.
And that would be us, the Marshmallow Men, in the middle of the winter in Kazakhstan. It was cold out there, but it was a great launch. We had a lot of great thrust, a great ride up top into orbit. It was a great experience. Coming out of the hatch, you can tell that we all love each other, we miss each other, and after 2.5 days of spinning around the Earth, and we were ready to get out, get some food, and get some good hugs from our colleagues, and then our first communication with our family after everything we've been through for the last few years really comes into play. And there's our fearless lead director, and the views that we saw when we first got there, we could just stare out the window for hours.
And we have many visiting vehicles which carried out the supplies and the cargoes and very important scientific equipments. And one of our job is using the gigantic robot manipulator to capture these vehicles. And this is very critical operations, but we did just like training, and it was very successful because of the instructors, nice instructors here in JSC. We got different types. This is Cygnus, and we got Dragon, and also after the docking, we needed lots of cargo operations, moving many stuff from the vehicle into the space station. It's like moving the house. And also we got progress resupply ships from the Russian partners, and we love Progress because they carry lots of fresh food, and we enjoy that food.
So Expedition 54 and 55 had a combination of 4 U.S. EVAs. Every single member of the crew is an experienced spacewalker, and every time any 2 people went outside on a spacewalk, the entire team was involved. You can imagine the feeling as you got your legs out into space for the first time. And I hope you can appreciate from this massive video here and the tiny people how huge an engineering achievement the space station is. A lot of the EVAs we did, the spacewalks we did, were associated with keeping the robotic arm functioning well, which is important because we were riding it later. And yeah, I did get some good points for that one. After between 5.5 and 7.5 hours of doing a spacewalk, we were all very happy to have had the opportunity, but we're also very happy to be returning to the safety and comfort of the airlock and the meal that would be waiting for us.
And this is a picture before Russian EVA we made with our crew who stay inside of station. Actually, it was EVA when we established a new record of duration of EVA for Russia, and it was only for Russia. And if we create this EVA not with Anton, it probably become a world record, just because Anton is so professional, like almost like a robotic arm, like a special EVA robot. He was able to do everything what I asked him. Thank you so much.
So we work in space, but it's also our home. You can see we do the normal routine in the morning, all the good hair products that, that I got to use for those that followed the famous Joe Hawk. That's how it happened there, but you got to get yourself ready for the day. Commander Bresnik on the razors to make us look good. And of course, every weekend we spend about 3 hours cleaning up the space station, so it's an important part of what we do. And of course, we like to have some fun.
Yep, any chance I get as a pilot, I want to do barrel rolls, so I try to do those as much as I could coming through the lab. And the guitars got to be a great source of fun, and people started requesting them for the PRs, and so that was good. And then when we needed to get some calories in our belly, that's my favorite PB&J tortilla, and I'm trying to get my wife on board. We'll get some more tortillas, and I think my diet for the next week will be great.
Of course, if the best astronaut and cosmonaut, it's that who do not eat and work a lot. We are not like that. We like also eating and celebrating. For example, now we are celebrating New Year, and we are preparing now Russian traditional Olivier salad, traditional for New Year. If in Russia we do not have such salad for New Year, it's not a New Year at all. And finally, it was my first Olivier, and it was in space. Can you see? There is no chance. Do not try it. Happy New Year, guys.
Okay, exercise. As you know, in space, without exercise, we are going to lose the muscle and the bone. So the exercise is pretty critical. And every day we did exercise 2 or 2.5 hours. And this is a machine called ARED. And with this machine, we did many different types of weight training. And we keep bone and muscle healthy. And this is very great place because the window cupola is next to the machine. So it was a very nice gym. And we also have a treadmill and the bike machine. And we can train the heart also.
And have you any idea what is this little piece of from yellow metal? It's a key. It's like you have a key in your car. We have a key in our station. And now we have a transition of command transition. I have to give it to Anton.
So after Anton made sure the space station was ready for our departure, and we were making sure the Soyuz was ready for our departure, we got ourselves snuggled up in that nice tight spot, and emphasis on tight, inside the descent module to return home. Leaving the space station was like a gentle pop, and then we had exactly the right moment. The main thrusters started to slow us down so we could interact with the atmosphere and return to exactly the right space on the planet where the search and rescue forces were there to meet us. I'm sure they were just as happy we showed up in the right spot as we were that they were there to meet us.
And saying goodbye to the other crew members is a bittersweet memory. But just after their departure, we started again the daily work, which is the experiment and researches. And this is a Japanese module, and we use the unique robot arm and airlock system and deploying small satellites. And so far, more than 200 small satellites are deployed from Japanese module Kibo. Again, the research is our main job, and literally hundreds of different scientific researches are ongoing every day on board the space station. And these very precious samples are stored inside the special freezer called Melfi, and eventually these samples are returned by the visiting Dragon capsule to the ground.
And then it's time to come home. Absolutely bittersweet. You develop relationships with everybody aboard and everybody on the ground, and but you're happy to get back to your family. You get in the capsule and you come home. It's like being in the middle of a fireball. And then when it all quiets down, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride starts, and it ends with the controlled crash into the dirt. And I will tell you that the recovery crew out there is absolutely amazing. So we'll sit there, the hatch opens, a big breath of fresh air, lots of smiles, get the handshake, and then climb out to get a good visual of the desert and all the great folks that were out there to help us on that. And it was absolutely wonderful. And we sit there and we kind of reflect back on what our experiences were as we were going through the last 3 years. It all seems like it goes by in a whirlwind, and all of a sudden we're on an airplane, we're heading back home again, and everything is behind us. And one of the things that we remember is pretty much all of the beautiful things that we saw while we were up there. We had people, we had relationships, we had great pictures. Previously, you saw the Straits of Gibraltar. You get the Bahamas here, and we got you can see the Straits of Gibraltar to the left, of the Mediterranean and Africa, and just the world going by and with such beauty. And of course, you see the moon up on that one. Just an absolute wonderful sunrises, the best sunsets you'd ever seen in your entire life. If we could capture it on picture every single day and send it down to you, because every day seems like it's special in its own right, and it's really cool to watch. The nighttime photos were especially nice. Everything out of the seas, you kind of see the Mediterranean, you see all the lights that you find around the geography. If you look up at the thunderstorms a little bit to the left, you'll see it's absolutely phenomenal. The views of the auroras in particular, they're absolutely wonderful. And definitely looking forward to getting back there, seeing it all again, thanks to all of the hard work that our team members do in this lovely community. We're not talking because we're crying. We miss it. Thank you so much for listening to the show, and thanks for coming to visit us too.
Like to stand up and take some questions now?
Sure.
Okay, the crew is going to take a few questions from the audience. So if they could all come up, and then you want to pick out the questions you want me to help?
Probably need a microphone for the people in the audience, or maybe some
shout and repeat it.
We will. Sir, in the center, please. Oh, that was a great question. So the question was, how many different changes of clothes do we take to the space station? To avoid too many details, imagine we get a fresh change of clothes about once a week. Pants, how many pants? What, 2 for the entire time you're there? 3? 1 a month, okay.
So he's answering the question for himself. We get a certain amount, and then he used a certain amount.
Yeah. Joe always has my back.
Next question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, well, thanks to all the educators here. You are the ones that make all of this possible, getting us prepared, getting the future prepared. So thank you very much. And so we just, you know, it was by chance that I got my flight. I came in very, very late, had a very short training flow, and then Ricky was following me up, so it was no better situation for us to celebrate a year of education on the space station. And so by doing that, it made sense for us to reflect on and carry on the work that Krista had started. So working with the Challenger Centers, it was just the perfect time. And Ricky's working on those today, and I heard that they just released the first lesson. So please, all you educators and students, take a look at it. It's pretty awesome. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, these small satellites are delivered on the visiting vehicle, and we retrieve from the vehicle and set up on the robot arm and airlock, and the ground controllers actually deploy automatic remotely from the ground.
And Mark actually built one while he was up there, assembled one.
Yeah, it was kind of like IKEA furniture. It was. They kept it simple for me. Way to the right. Okay, yes, please. The question was, are we free in the next 2 months to help out with a nonprofit? So.
Yeah, that's an ongoing process, and I have a great excuse. I'm going back to Russia.
And I'm actually going to Washington, D.C. for a couple months. Anyone?
It's not that we don't care.
So, you know what?
All right.
You know, actually, though, please give me, if you would, some information. I'd love to. I'm interested. So maybe not in the next 2 months, but sometime. Thanks. Let's see. Help me out. Way in back. So the most challenging thing, be it emotionally or physically, health-wise, what was the hardest?
We've all got a great sense of humor, so we definitely weren't sad or emotional. We had great support up there and great communications with our families, so things were good there. But you know, I got something in my eye once a couple of times. That was kind of a little bit of a challenge, but my buddy Joe here helped me out and squirted me with a bunch of water and some antibiotic stuff, so that helped. But I think all in all, as a group, probably just keeping ourselves in good physical shape. You know, we've got to religiously work out every single day with resistive weight training as well as with cardiovascular. And if we don't, we suffer some big consequences when we get back. So I wouldn't say it was hard, but it's a challenge because, you know, when you're doing it for 6 months, every single day, it does get old after a little bit. Your playlist gets old, and you gotta change it up a little bit.
In the back left, your reference frame. Yes, please. Question was, how many times were we able to communicate with our families?
It depends on you. If you have free time, we have usually a satellite phone. It's free. You can call if just you need to know a number of the cell phone of your friends or from your family. And free time. You can call all day. Usually, we start our working day with call to your family, ask about what happened before this call, then maybe during the day, after lunch, and in the evening, 3 times and more, of course.
So you might have just set up the rest of our families for like, why didn't you call us that much? All right, quick, next question. Back and to the right, please. One of you young ladies back there. Yeah, Joe would get mad at me every time I had chocolate. So I have a mild lactose intolerance that actually got worse in space, which made it uncomfortable for everybody anytime I had anybody. So without going into too much detail, about a month into the flight, I got the list of things to avoid. That's really how we dealt with it. Next question quickly. Center right, please. What was it like to eat food in space?
Well, it's interesting, and the most interesting thing which I like eating in space, you have spoon with a long handle. Have you any guess for what reason we need a special spoon with a long handle? Feed Anton. It was first guess. Do you have one more? Actually, usually I say it's because you need have opportunity to try the food from your friend first, and only after that, feed Anton. Next question, please.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Oh boy. So I spent a little bit of time practicing a song I kind of modified. It was a take on Hey Bartender. It became Hey Flight Direct. We played Gloria, we played Hallelujah, we played several other songs. Drew and I are both kind of old, so we leveraged a little bit towards the Who and some of the older bands out there. A lot of fun. It was a great release. I don't think we really ever officially got through an entire song completely, but we got some good licks back out and got our fingers moving again. So it passed some good time when we needed it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So how did we communicate with the schools in Puerto Rico? So as you know, pretty much at the same time that we launched in September, Puerto Rico was hit by Hurricane Maria, and it was really devastating for the island, and not just Puerto Rico, but everybody in the path of the hurricane. And what's interesting about being in space during a hurricane is when you look at it from space and you've seen the photos, it's this natural phenomena, but you also realize the impact that storm is having on real people, real individuals. I have family and friends that live there, so you have that concern for all of those people while the hurricane is happening. Luckily, in January, and it took a lot of work by a lot of people there, and also NASA working with them for us to have a downlink with those students. And I'll tell you, real time when it was happening, it didn't happen. We did not have communication. They weren't able to do a test. I'm kind of standing there floating there in front of the camera, and then about 5 minutes later, they pulled it all together and it worked out. So it was a huge accomplishment. I think it was a great motivational event for the students, and it was just nice to Boricua.
This young lady in the far right back, please. Yes? I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time? You think people from Asia have an advantage?
I don't think so. It's pretty much same. Maker and I had the same flight, and we are pretty good. Both of us, immediately after the arrival of the space station, we started the work, and it was perfect, and we are pretty much ready. And it's for almost everybody.
Okay, young lady in the far back right. Yes. What was it like feeling weightless? Oh, I got, okay. So the question was, what does it feel like being in no gravity? Fortunately for us, gravity didn't disappear because we stayed in orbit and we didn't leave the planet. What I'm really trying to say, though, is that in space, we're all falling towards the Earth, but we're going so quickly horizontally that we stay in that free fall for a really long time. That's what it means to be in orbit. So it gives you the sensation of floating. And who wants to describe that?
So it's like being at the bottom of a pool, and when you push off, you just kind of keep on gliding, except there's no drag. You can just keep going forever. And if you got a little bit of a rate and your body's not perfectly, aligned, you'll just keep on spinning. You'll keep turning until you bump into something. And I bumped into something when I first got there. I had a little bump on my head. So.
Way in back, waving your hand vigorously. How do we sleep?
On orbit, we have 8 hours and half special for sleep, but my opinion, it's enough 6 hours to sleep. It's same like on Earth. Same, you can relax. Usually we have same dreams like colors, without colors, like black and white. It does matter, usual dreams. We have a special sleeping bag, and more important to fix the sleeping bag. Because if you forget to fix this sleeping bag on the wall or maybe on the floor, it doesn't matter because this space. Flow can move during your sleeping for example, from a Russian segment to a US segment. You can wake up at different place, and first time it's where are you? It's terrible. It's don't forget to fix your sleeping bag.
Back left, sir. Yes. How scary was it during re-entry? I'll start. Someone else can jump in. So I thought it was actually, I was so focused on checking telemetry, it really wasn't very scary. The time that I got a little nervous was as the G-forces started building up. Of course, we're used to floating so much. The thing that surprised me is my jaw actually felt very heavy, and so it started pushing on my throat. So I had this sensation that the only way I could breathe was by having to cough. And then eventually, because we had field medical training, I knew to clear someone's airway, you move their jaw forward. I just shoved my jaw forward, and it worked great. When it came to the actual landing, again, I would say it happened so fast, it wasn't something I was scared about. It was something that I only was concerned after we hit. I thought, wow, how would I know if I had a concussion? Would I have enough brain capacity to figure it out? And do I have a concussion right now? I don't know. And it was all fine, but my initial response was, that was a lot more than I expected.
Yeah, so it's not scary, but it's definitely very exciting, especially for the first time. After you're going through separation and you see the cable and the trough that it sits in kind of separate and come apart, and then it's just kind of there, and you're looking out the window and you go, hey, I thought that was supposed to go away. But it's still there, and so it just happens very slowly, and it starts building up, and then you start seeing a few sparks, and then the cable trough just goes away, and you see it tumbling away. It's like, oh, okay, it took a little while, but it happened okay. Then the fire starts building up, and then you realize that you can't see anything because you're in the middle of a big, huge fire. And then the window's starting to black over, and you're feeling the G-forces, and you decide to put your checklist down because you're just tired of holding it up, and you just want to look out the window because it's kind of cool, and you're starting to get really excited. And then the G, it hit about 4.1, and it starts coming back, and you're like, okay, I got it. We'll get the checklist out, and just starting to get busy and manage the systems a little bit. And then all of a sudden you get that the first primary chute that comes out to open it up, and then it's Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. It's really exciting, and and Anton about 30 seconds before we got it, he asked me. He says, "Hey, when's the chute supposed to open?" And at that moment, I was like, "Oh my God, it didn't open on time. Oh, we must have missed." So I start going through my checklist. I was like, "Oh, we still got a minute, no problem." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then we hit Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. He made sure we were ready and we were all buckled in because he's a great commander. And we hit Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and Anton, Nemo was trying to do good work and keep us in line, but Anton and I were just having a blast. We were high-fiving and laughing and giggling and talking about how good of a driver we were and coming down the chute. And then the chute kind of straightened out. You get one more swing, and then everything's kind of calm. And you're like, "Oh, wow, that wasn't so bad. It's kind of cool." And just as your brain's kind of mellowing out, and you're like, "Okay, we got this. No problem. It's good." The seats jam forward, and they put you like this close to the displays. And I totally forgot that was going to happen. And I was like, I forgot that was going to happen. Okay, but we're there, and it's all good. Made sure we're still all tight, whatever. And you're like, "Okay, we're good." We're looking at the altitude. Well, okay, we got a little boom, and you hit the ground, and it's like a car crash. And we look at each other, and Anton's like, "Is everybody okay?" And we're like, "Damoy, we're home." And it was so scary. No, not really. Interesting, absolutely.
And we have time for one last question. I'm going to go with this young lady in the back right. Yes. What kind of bacteria did we study? I'm going to say Joe's bacteria, but
I think that's the hardest question we got all night.
That's wow. I can't speak in words that are that many syllables. Yeah, I don't know the answer quite honestly. So because of that, I'm going to take a pass on that one in hopes we can get you that answer in the future, and to go with that one gentleman here. Thanks for making it possible to get everybody involved. So how do we deal with new car smell with new objects coming on board?
Wow. There's a lot of old car smell. Yes, there is.
So when you get to the space station, having been there before, it has a very distinct odor that I personally don't find pleasing. Mark didn't seem to mind it at all. And then when we get those visiting vehicles that show up, there is some off-gassing that happens, but we do prepare for that. We wear masks, and we stay out of those for about 45 minutes or an hour. So by the time we go in, there are no medical issues or anything like that. So we take care of that. We get the old and the new.
Thank you, everybody.
That concludes our official program here. Let's have a big round of applause for this cruise and for all the people on the ground that do the work. These folks will be in the lobby for a limited time signing autographs. So if you want to make your way down there, we just ask as you leave, please don't come down to the stage. Thank you so much for coming and showing everybody how much you appreciate it. Thank you very much.